If a colleague wrote that to me on a "we're sorry you're leaving us" card, I'd instantly assume they were unable to come up with anything nice to say. So there's that. Hi, I'm Colin Stone and this is Talk Shop, here to analyse the communication and presentation skills of the world's big names to highlight what works and what they need to change. This time, and for the second time in as many months, it's the new British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and his October 2022 speech outside of 10 Downing Street. Let's get into it.
It is only right to explain why I am standing here as your new Prime Minister. Right now, our country is facing a profound economic crisis.
There's a lot to be said, even at this point, for setting the stage. If you recall some of the speeches that Boris Johnson gave outside of number 10, it would sometimes appear to the viewer that busloads of his supporters were standing at the end of the street, creating a near celebratory atmosphere. Here, it's very different. It's almost funereal. It's very serious, other than the opening chords of "I Predict a Riot" you can hear in the background. This is important though for a public speech, getting the environment right. The PM's about to paint a bleak picture of the British economy, the tough times ahead, and I believe he's wanted to reflect that by setting the stage appropriately. Okay, let's get into the speech properly.
I want to pay tribute to my predecessor, Liz Truss. She was not wrong to want to improve growth in this country. It is a noble aim. And I admired her restlessness to create change. But some mistakes were made.
2 points to make here. First of all, let's talk about negative language. Now, if you watched our last analysis of Liz Truss, you'll recall my description of pink elephants, things you're not doing or not saying, but now that you've said it, we're all thinking it anyway. For example, don't think about a pink elephant, and your mind still comes up with the image. Well, here is an excellent pink elephant from Rishi. Liz Truss was not wrong to want to improve growth. And now we're talking about her being wrong. Swapping these unnecessary negatives out for positive or active descriptions is really easy, so this becomes instead, Liz Truss was right to want to improve growth. And that would then change the tone of that sentence entirely. The second point here is about the word but. There's a saying that everything before the but is bull, and it's worth reiterating. Phrases like, "Your reporting was great, but your tie was always wonky." Or, "We like having you in the office, but you talk too much." Those sentences simply focus on what came after the word but, and the compliment gets forgotten. In fact, did the person even mean it? And this is what Rishi does here. He compliments Miss Truss before saying, "but mistakes were made." And now it can appear as if he was disingenuous about his predecessor or saying things just for the sake of being polite. So what to do? Remove the but, turn it into 2 separate sentences, add context if you need to. That way your audience digests and importantly believes what you've said.
Will not leave the next generation, your children and grandchildren, with a debt to settle that we were too weak to pay ourselves. I will unite our country, not with words, but with action. I will work day in and day out to deliver for you.
Let's talk about using contractions, and by that I mean turning "I will" or "I am" into "I'll" or "I'm." Now, in formal or business writing, we typically use the full form. In a public speech, though, it's far better to use the contraction because it's chattier. It's how you'd say it if you were speaking to a friend or, in the Prime Minister's case, speaking to someone on the street. "I'll unite our country. I'll work day in, day out to deliver for you." And if you worked those contractions through this entire speech, it would make it sound more conversational and friendlier as well.
I will always be grateful to Boris Johnson for his incredible achievements as Prime Minister, and I treasure his warmth and generosity of spirit. And I know he would agree that the mandate my party earned in 2019...
This section on Boris is interesting. To me, it's acknowledging the supporters who were clamouring for a return to number 10 for Mr Johnson, while then using the phrase, "I know he would agree," to nicely pivot onto a shared goal, which in this case is a united party. That's all well and good. From a communication standpoint though, praising someone's generosity of spirit is about as vague and indistinct as it gets. If a colleague wrote that to me on a "we're sorry you're leaving us" card, I'd instantly assume they were unable to come up with anything nice to say. So there's that. I'm really intrigued by its usage here because, let's face it, what does generosity of spirit even mean? Is that the only good thing he can say about him? Of course, he will want to avoid tying himself to any of Boris's actions while in government. Our advice, instead, is always to be specific. Give us an example. Tell us a short story that demonstrates said generosity, rather than leaving it up to the audience to decide for themselves what you mean.
I will deliver on its promise. A stronger NHS, better schools, safer streets, control of our borders, protecting our environment, supporting our armed forces, levelling up.
So that is a good example of reading from a script while balancing eye contact evenly across an audience. It feels warmer and more human to us as viewers because rather than talking straight down the lens, which can come across as robotic and stilted in a speech like this, he's including everyone, even those smaller media outlets crammed in at the sides of the media scrum here. I empathise with them. It's nicely done, and the short, sharp phrasing, which is visual as well, that's all good technique.
That must be seen successfully to its conclusions. I fully appreciate how hard things are. And I understand too that I have work to do to restore trust after all that has happened.
A quick stop here to talk about phrasing. Often we see this near the end of speeches. The presenter has really focused on and practiced the opening and only skim-read the parts towards the end, meaning we get some uneven delivery. Though Rishi's pace and use of pauses in this speech are good on the whole, here's an example of where the pause has fallen in the wrong place. After all, that has happened. I believe if he'd practiced this final section more, he'd have known the phrase delivery is, "after all that's happened." And this is where the criticism of being robotic can creep in, because if you were saying this to someone on the street, you'd have run that phrase together rather than left a short pause in the middle. It's a minor change that can make a major difference. Okay, let's finish up.
All I can say is that I am not daunted. I know the high office I have accepted, and I hope to live up to its demands.
As Corlys Velaryon said, hope is the fool's ally. Or in our words, we'd say hope is a wish based on desire, and it undermines your audience's confidence in what you're saying. For example, as I was told by the tutor on a first aid course recently, what I'll teach you today will hopefully help you save someone's life. And now I'm second guessing if I'm actually going to learn anything useful. Now the reason we use the word hope in these contexts is because what if we fall short? What if we're unable to deliver what we're promising? And so hope gets inserted as a get out clause. I hope you understood that. I hope you learned something. But by using it, we're sowing seeds of doubt in our audience's mind. So what do we need to do? Swap it out for a different word. In most cases, the word trust will do the trick, a word based on reliability and confidence. So, for example, I trust you understood that, I trust you very well. And here, with the Prime Minister, he could have said, and I'm confident I'll live up to its demands. That would have been much better than, I hope, because we'd far prefer the leader of our country was confident rather than hopeful. Rishi Sunak was much more of a known quantity for me as a speaker than his predecessor, and I can tell from this 6-minute speech alone that he is already a polished performer. He takes his time. It comes across as statesmanlike, and the only real changes I'm suggesting he make are small. It's things like word choice, word substitution, and overall making his language chattier. As I said about mistrusts, I expect he'll continue to improve as he makes more and more of these speeches, but I'll avoid putting a timeline on that because at this rate, we may have another Prime Minister to analyse before the year's out. I trust you've enjoyed this edition of Talk Shop, and if you want to learn how to grow your confidence in public speaking, you can buy one of our e-learning courses on the Pink Elephant Academy and use the discount code TALKSHOP for 30% off everything. Link is in the description below. Till next time, smile and speak slowly. I said that too fast. And speak slowly. That was better.